Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Sayyid Farooq Hasan is back with a new episode of Yours Only Sky is the Limit. We have had a lot of civil servants who are decorated, who've won accolades, who've contributed a lot to Pakistan. But one distinguished individual who stands out and is still contributing to Pakistan post-retirement is here with me right now. I'm lucky to have gotten a chance to catch up with him during one of his visits to Islamabad. I'm talking about none other than Tesneem Noorani. Let's meet the man himself. Assalamu alaikum, Sir Tesneem.
Ji, wa alaikum salam.
Sir, thank you very much for giving me time.
You're welcome.
It's an honor.
Yes,
Sir Tesneem, you are such a decorated officer. You are currently also by being a security analyst. We keep on watching you on different programs on television. Besides that, one of the biggest things I would say that you are doing is the foundation of the Tesneem Noorani Foundation, under which you are doing a lot of educational initiatives. So we'll talk a lot about that also. But before all that, where and how did the journey start? Where do you come from? Where were you born? And how was your early childhood?
My early childhood was obviously a very normal, mundane childhood. My father was a government servant. He was a railway officer.
Okay.
So railway officers, and he was a mid-ranking railway officer. So he used to be transferred from one station to the other. So we had to, tag along with him. So I didn't, because I think they didn't send me to school for the first 5 or 6, 7 years. And then, of course, I used to go, one of the servants used to put me on a motorbike and used to sort of drop me to the school and pick me up from the school.
And
it was one of those government taught schools.
Where was it? In Lahore?
Once it was in Khanewal.
Okay.
Then it was in Raiwind.
Okay.
Then once in Sheikhupura.
The first one was in Khanewal?
The first one in Sheikhupura.
Sheikhupura, okay.
And then in Khanewal, and then in Raiwind.
Okay.
And then ultimately Lahore.
So you kept on hopping from one school to the other?
But then what happened was that an uncle of mine, he was, he had friends in the, he was one of the cipher officers. There was a cipher department in the government of Pakistan, and he's one of the officers. So he had got an offer from a friend of his that there is this beautiful boarding school, and I know that your son is of a similar age, so this is the pro forma I'm sending you, and this is the test that is going to be conducted, and he says, I got this letter. But he found that his son was a year underage.
Okay.
So I was his brother's son, so he sent it to me.
That you can avail this opportunity.
That why don't you appear? So I appeared in this test for the PAF school Sargoda.
Ah, okay, the famous one.
The famous one, all right? And I got through, just scraped through.
Okay.
And then of course I went to Sargoda at the age of 11.
In the boarding?
In the boarding.
And were you the eldest of the siblings?
I was just a sister and a brother.
Okay.
And I was the only son. And I tell mothers of this era that look, everybody loves their son and everybody loves their child, and nobody wants to sort of, send them away. But my mother,
or put them in difficulty.
My mother had the courage to say, all right, send this boy to Sargoda, where she's going to see me only twice a year, once in the summer vacation, once in the winter vacations.
Okay.
There were no communication, there were no telephones. Letter was the main thing of communication. So, Bahral, I went there.
Which grade was this?
Grade 6.
Grade 6 you went there.
So then grade 7. 6 pass karke, after 6 again 7. 7, 8, 9, 10.
And did you know what you were getting into? Like, were you mentally prepared?
No, I think I was too young.
You just took it
I was
in the
too
stride?
Young. It was just advised by my chacha. And my father was abroad on a training, so he wasn't there. And my mother said, fine. So one day they put me in a vehicle and they dropped me to the school.
And till then, how were you doing in your studies? Were you like a bright student?
No.
Average?
I can't even recall in terms of,
academics.
One was going from one class to the other.
Okay.
There were no issues of coming first. or there was no issue of, trying to excel in studies.
Okay.
There was absolutely no pressure from the parents.
Okay.
they, you know, and so it was a normal.
And what were your
routine
interests? Like, were you interested in extracurricular, like sports and all, debates, poetry?
Not at the age of 7, not at the age of 11.
Not at the age of 11.
No,
You're just
no.
a normal childhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you went to the boarding school, you found 70, 80, you know, Dashkaras, or, you know, and they were, by the way, 50% of our used to be from Bengal.
Okay.
And they were often older
Okay.
and tougher.
Okay.
And so one had to learn to survive at the age of 11, 12, amongst other bullying boys. And
Without any prior preparation.
obviously, you know, you're just
You're just thrown there.
and you're just thrown there. And the good thing was that in those days, the PF Public School Sargodha had a arrangement with the British Council.
Okay.
So half our teachers were British.
Oh, okay.
So that was another issue. I didn't know how to speak English. You know, after going from a normal
To a government
school, you
yeah.
know.
Basic.
And so there was a question of being thrown into the deep end of the pool.
And not knowing the
into
language.
Not knowing the language, and there were of course other boys also who didn't know the language, but there was pressure from the teachers. So the first year was traumatic. But it wasn't as if one could go back to the mother and cry on her shoulder and say, we could come,
Because
I
you
want
didn't
to
have
come
that
back.
option also.
There was no looking back.
Okay.
And the parents were not there to sort of ask, you know, whether you're doing all right, whether we can get you back or something.
Okay.
So you were on your own.
Okay.
And so one spent 4 years there.
You learned how to survive.
You learned how to survive, you learned how to speak, you learned how, and then, you know, in these boarding schools, there is discipline. You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you go do PT,
physical training and all.
then you sort of dress up, you go to breakfast, then you go to class, then you go to preps, you know, you go back to school, your class, then you have sports. And, you know, the whole thing starts from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you are, you know,
So
regulated.
it was PF college, PF
Yes,
school,
Sargodha.
Sargodha. So that means intentionally or unintentionally, you were mentally prepared to become a pilot.
In those days, there was an option, PF had an option that they would ask after 3 years or 4 years, if you didn't want to join the Air Force, then you had to pay full
Okay, the fee.
fee. So before that, I was paying 15 rupees a month. But when I said that I don't want to join the Air Force, then I had to pay 100 rupees a month.
Okay.
So you know, and
at that time, 100 rupees was
big.
big.
You know, so that was for the last year or so. But the boarding education is the one which transformed me, which gave me the confidence, and you know, the confidence and which gave me the discipline, sports every day. To this day, you know, it's a habit which picked up from the school.
Okay.
And I was so confident that the age of 16, 17 when, when I was first year in school, we went to the class to India for a trip. Then when I was 17, me and my friend, with just I think 100 rupees or 200 rupees in our pockets,
Yep.
we went from Lahore to Zahedan, Zahedan to Mashhad, Quetta to Zahedan, Zahedan
Iran,
to
yeah.
Mashhad, and spent a month on the Caspian Sea at the age of 17.
Within those 200 rupees.
Within those 200 rupees.
Okay.
We bought some things. Us zamane mein, in those days it used to be that you could buy tea from Quetta and sell it in Iran and sort of treble your money.
Yeah.
And you could buy some other shoes, chappals or some Peshawari chappals.
Yeah.
So these kind of products. So what I'm trying to say is that one at the age of 17 had the confidence to travel to Tehran.
And the sense.
And then at the age of 19, me and my friend, we went again with just a few hundred, I think about 100 pounds or 200 pounds, something like that, very minimal amount, traveled to London.
Oh. On your own.
On our own. There's two of us. Again, we went by road. We went.
Same friend?
No, another friend.
Okay.
Train to Quetta, Quetta to Zahedan train, Zahedan to Mashhad bus, Mashhad to Tehran bus, and then we went to the Ankara. There's a town called Erzurum
Okay.
on the Iran-Turkish border. There a train goes across Turkey So you land in Istanbul, and from Istanbul we caught the Orient Express, and through that, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria.
Traveled all the way.
Traveled all the way, and
So
there I went, and since I ran out of money,
yeah.
so there I went. There's a friend of my father, a German, who was doing some collaboration with the railways, so we used to meet him. So he gave me a reference, so I went to his factory, and they gave me a labor's job.
Okay.
So I worked there for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And
Hard labor.
Hard labor.
Okay.
I used to be in the packing section.
Okay.
So at the age of 19, and I worked for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I saved enough money. I used to live in the YMCA. It was called Kolpinghaus. So 1 Deutschmark was the rent. And so I saved enough money to then travel to London, to Luxembourg, to France.
So there was no concept of visas in those days?
There was no concept of visas, and wherever there was visas, you got it.
Okay, it was easy.
I'm talking of 1964.
Okay. Okay.
And so in 4 months I was back for my, BA classes.
Okay. But you had decided by then that you're not going to become a pilot?
No, I decided at the end of 3 years, I decided in the 9th class that I don't want to become a pilot. Primarily, I think the instinct at that stage was that in those days, Air Force was a small Air Force.
Okay.
And their bases were only in Sargodha, in Karachi, and in Risalpur.
Peshawar?
Peshawar was, not Risalpur, and Sargodha was the biggest base. So the thing at the back of my mind was that if I joined the Air Force, I would have to come back to Sargodha. I would, Sargodha, I would go to Risalpur, and then back to Sargodha. So that didn't appeal to me.
You wanted to travel?
I wanted to, have that option. So then I had enough, I got very good marks in metric. I went to government college.
So after you joined the school, you became one of the top 10 kind of students?
I did become, yes.
Yeah.
I was, I think.
And it was all instinctive, like natural?
There was no pressure.
No pressure at all. And did you ever think of, when you went back after 6 months vacation, to your parents that, I don't want to stay in boarding and, I would rather
No, but
come?
that was post-boarding.
That was post-boarding, okay.
That is the confidence gained during boarding when I was in college. That was after my 2nd year.
Okay.
After my FSC, I went, during my FSC, we went to Tehran. And after my FSC, we went to Germany.
So you never thought of, you were happy with what you were doing and,
Yes, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Okay.
But I wanted to have the freedom of, selection.
Fair
I didn't want to take a decision. I think that's
which was imposed on you.
At the age of 17, 18, that I wanted, be in the Air Force. So I have very good friends. My best friends are from the Air Force because of my,
Because
people,
they're PF school?
People one grew up with and shared the benches with.
Of course. So did your intermediate from PF school, Sargodha?
No, metric from there.
Yeah.
Government College Lahore.
So after your matric, you got admission on merit?
On merit.
Government College is still one of the leading institutions.
It was the school I'm talking about.
And what subjects did you take?
Well, pre-engineering.
Pre-engineering. So
pre-engineering, yeah.
There was an engineer inside.
My father was an engineer, so therefore pre-engineering. But then I changed my mind after FSC and I took geology.
Okay.
The idea was geology appealed to me as an attractive subject where you could study the earth and, sort of oil and minerals and all that. So I did my MSc in geology and I did well in that also. And then I became a lecturer, at the Punjab University, was not through the Public Service Commission, but it was one of the, like a training assistant kind of a thing. And then I appeared in the civil service exam. And I wasn't academically, I wouldn't consider myself academically bright, never was. But I got the 4th position.
How much did you study for that exam? Because there's
3 months.
That's it?
3 months.
And those 3 months were 24/7 or?
Well, it was pretty hard in the
Pretty.
sense that, you know, you locked yourself in an area and you sort of said, I'm going to study. And because in those days you had to take elective subjects,
Okay.
like even now, which you had never studied before. For instance, it was said that you could get good marks in British history.
Mm-hmm.
So one got the books of British history, got people's notes and studied British history and got good results. So, we studied, I think studied 3 months and, got into the civil service, CSP.
CSP.
So CSP at the age of
23.
and then
Right after your graduation.
right after my graduation, 1 year as a teaching assistant or a lecturer in the
Same
Punjab
government
University.
college? Punjab University.
In the Punjab University. So then you are a young CSP officer at the age of 23 and the world is, you know,
On your feet.
admiring you and the world is saying that you are a successful man.
And you were
And,
you took the 4th position, right? And which group did you opt for?
CSP.
CSP.
Well, you got CSP on merit, you know.
Okay. And then you got your training in the academy,
Yeah,
Civil Services Academy,
that was training. And then I got posted to Bhalwal.
Balwal. Okay.
Bhalwal was a tehsil which was converted into a subdivision by Air Marshal Noor Khan when he was governor.
Ah.
So when I went there as AC, there was a decent office, but it didn't have a house. The tehsildar had a good house,
Okay.
but the AC's office didn't exist.
Okay.
So then I had to live in a canal rest house,
Okay.
which was 3 miles away from town.
Okay.
And often on a rainy day, I had to go to work on a horseback. Because
Horseback.
this was on a canal bank and the canal roads are kacha.
Oh.
So, you know, they get muddy
Uh-huh.
and it's a canal rest houses are alone, you know, there's no habitation around them. So I used to live alone. I was not married, and there was no security issues then. And I used to get the locals horses in the evening to ride horses
Mm-hmm.
because I had learned how to ride in the academy.
Okay.
That was my exercise.
Okay.
And the whole day I used to go. The AC is supposed to do, you know, in those days, I don't know what, I don't think they had. Khasra Girdavri.
Okay.
Khasra Girdavri is the
Demarcation of the lands?
the assistant commissioner is supposed to check, I think, 5% of the total Khasra Girdavri done by the Patwaris. And we used to go on horseback to check the field and say, this field belongs to you. Yes. Did you cultivate it? Yes. Look at the record. Did the Patwari enter it correctly? Because cultivation, muzara, the tenant gives you the tenant's right.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue that the Patwari will write a different name when actually there's somebody else cultivating, so that the person who is cultivating, his rights are not there, is given to somebody.
Okay.
So this assistant commissioner is supposed to do. So we used to do that,
This was your first posting?
first posting.
And you you were there for how many years?
I was there for a year and a half or something. I got the 1970 elections. I was a returning officer in Bhalwal for the
Okay.
1970 elections.
Okay. And then from
And-
there you went to Shakargarh
Then I went to Shakargarh
as assistant commissioner.
as assistant commissioner.
And that would have changed your mindset also.
Well, you know, we were doing
Those are
revenue.
testing times.
We were doing revenue training. We hadn't done our revenue training, so we were sent to revenue training, which is part of the NCL court.
Mm-hmm.
And there I got a letter from the government saying you have to report to Shakargarh within 24 hours. The war was about to start,
71 war.
71 war, you know, and this was, I think the war started on the 6th of December, and this must have been on the 29th of November that I arrived in Shakargarh. And sort of preparations were going on, and we dug trenches for civil aviation, etc. And we were training our chaps. The civil defense training was going on. And why we were posted? Because the officer prior to us had abandoned post. he was so scared of serving right in the front.
Because Shakargarh is a bordering town.
Shakargarh is a city which juts into the Indian territory. Gurdaspur district was given to India. Only Shakargarh Tehsil of Gurdaspur district
Was not,
you know.
okay.
So, so Shakargarh is an area which juts in. You know, and that is the district which of Gurdaspur came to Pakistan. So he had abandoned. So we were sent there. Myself and a friend of mine, Naveed Hasan, he was in AC Pasroor. So two of us were sent there. And then of course the war started. One day we heard, you know, one of these
Explosions.
artillery guns, like you hear. We used to see a lot of Hollywood movies. So in Hollywood movies, you'll see a, you know, guy. You'll see a whistle.
Yeah.
Dum.
Something dropping by.
That's the kind of thing one heard at 1 o'clock, and you know, one realized, oh, it's got to be something.
Has happened. But you were expecting that something is.
So we
in
went
there.
and sat in the trench. But we found the trench that we had dug was only good for sitting for 15 minutes, because that was about 2 feet broad, 4 feet wide. So while waiting for the next gola, one sat there for 2 hours. Next gola didn't come. As soon as one went into the house, the next gola came. So then the next morning, we dug up the place. We put, you know, little the wooden balas
Covered
on top,
it with, okay.
and we made a bigger trench for ourselves. And so but the task was that there were a lot of refugees coming from the border front. You know, when there were firing going on, so the people were running away.
Displaced.
And my task was to look after them and find transport for them.
To transport them back to the city.
So I used to travel to Gujranwala, requisition buses, bring them to Shakargarh, and put these refugees
In those buses.
and transport them to safe places. A lot of them didn't have any place to go, so we used to accommodate them in the government schools.
Okay.
And then we used to arrange food. And while all this, especially in the last 6 days, the Pakistan Army, we withdrew. Shakargarh was 7 kilometers away from the border. But I think that after the first 6-7 days, the army withdrew to Shakargarh. So Shakargarh became the
Main station.
main front.
Okay.
Shakargarh, there's a little nala which is called Bai Nala,
Okay.
which flows. So across that was the enemy, and this is the AC's residence and the bunker, and the brigadier's bunker was in the civil rest house.
Okay.
So after about 7-8 days, the population all evacuated. Everybody, the government servants, everybody ran.
Okay.
Civil, police,
Yeah.
the assistant commissioner
Was standing there.
was standing there.
And that was on his own accord?
That was on his, you know, I mean, if I had run away, I don't know, maybe there would have been some bad reputation.
You
But,
stood your position.
But my theory was that, look, you are a superior service officer. The government considers you as member of the Central Superior Services. You can't behave like the ordinary officer. So you're expected of you to behave in a very honorable
You
and
lead from the front.
lead from the front. So I stuck it out there, I and my driver.
Okay.
And the last 4 days, we shifted almost to the bunker of the brigadier.
Okay.
You know, shifted means we just used to spend time
Yeah.
there. During the day, I used to go, and there was strafing, there was bombing going on.
And the town was empty.
Town was absolutely empty, locked. As a matter of fact, the last 2 days, the Indians wanted to capture Shakargarh, and they also announced to the world that they had captured Shakargarh the last 4 or 5 days. So then the Pakistan, the ISPR sent the BBC team and the CNN team to Shakargarh,
You go
and they
see
said,
if
our assistant commissioner is there. It's not being captured.
Wow.
So they came, and you know, the assistant commissioner gave an interview to the BBC and the CNN and said, look, I'm here.
We are very much intact.
Yeah, so it's
Standing our ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the last 2 days, they attacked very seriously.
Okay.
And before the attack, they obviously full blast artillery fire. And so sitting in the bunker at night in the dark, it was like hailstorm, hitting tin roof.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of sound you hear.
Mm-hmm.
And outside, gunfire and all that. And then the situation became so tense because the Indians penetrated the battalion that was there. It was called the 19FF. It was led by an officer called Colonel Shafiq, very brave man. So then they penetrated, and I was seeing everything on the brigadier's naksha, that board.
On the map, yeah.
And then at one stage was reached where the brigadier ordered all papers to be burnt. That's the last drill.
Oh.
If you are expecting to be
Taken over,
overwhelmed, then you burn all your papers. And they said, do you have a weapon? So I was in my blazer and my shalwar kameez, and I said, look, I'm a civilian officer, I don't. So then one of the majors, who was the brigade major, he gave me a few hand grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, do you know how to use a hand grenade? And I said, I don't know. So he said, all right, pull out this pin and throw within 15 seconds or something. So I had 3 hand grenades in my pocket.
Okay.
And I was sitting in the BM's office and sometimes in the brigadier's office and waiting. Because
when to use those? And waiting for when to use those grenades.
When to be overwhelmed. Because the Naksha had shown that the Gorkhas, it was a Gorkha battalion, they had crossed over, they had come into the city.
Yeah, okay.
And they were kind of on the borders of the periphery of the rest house. And so I kept waiting, and at about 1 o'clock, after waiting for about 4 hours, I felt so tired that there was a clock stable, which was empty. So I lay there and I went to sleep. And at about 4 o'clock when I got up, 5 o'clock when I went out, it was quiet. And the daylight was appearing at about 5:30. And then the Subedar said, sir, we've beaten them away.
Oh,
and, and then I went out. And I went out of the parameters of the rest house, and I saw dead bodies of the Indian soldiers, dead buffaloes. And obviously I took photographs and, So
you got Tamgha Khidmat for that feat of yours.
Yeah. Then although the Bhutto Sahab had banned all civil awards, but the government made special distinction, and they
performing your duty and standing your ground.
Yeah, they sent a Tamgha.
Okay.
They awarded a Tamgha with the citation for bravery.
Wow.
So that's how I started my career in the civil service.
Your initial career.
Yeah.
And then you served abroad also, I think in Singapore. You were there in Singapore.
Yeah. I was the trade commissioner.
Trade commissioner.
And the Shahidi affairs.
Okay.
So in those days, the embassy, the trade officer was the head of the embassy. So I was flying the flag for 4 years.
Okay.
And from 84 to 88, I enjoyed Singapore and contributed.
And you were there in the education sector also? You served in the education, sports?
In the government?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been education and as education secretary in the Punjab government.
Yes.
And I've been deputy commissioner Dera Ghazi Khan, commissioner Faisalabad.
All important postings.
Well,
and you designed this transport system also.
Yeah, in Faisalabad,
a very successful transport
in
system.
Faisalabad, one got an opportunity because the commissioner's level is pretty, pretty high and significant. So in Faisalabad, one saw one of the things that one did a number of other things, was that the public had a problem transporting, and the Suzuki Dabbas were the only means of transport. And so I said, why can't we solve it? And of course the government resources are always limited. So what we did was that we set up a non-formal company, an NGO. We called it a GONGO, Government Non-Government Organization. Registered under the Social Welfare Department as a legal entity.
Okay.
Manned by government officers. This was the commissioner, the DIG were members. And so that legal entity, it was called the Faisalabad Urban Transport System.
Okay.
They said, in those days, there was these high ace wagons which had been imported into the Prime Minister's scheme. And people didn't know what to do with them. So we said, anybody who brings a high ace, we'll give him a permit, we'll give him a logo of the company, he'll be under our control, he'll sign an agreement that he's under our control, we'll charge him, I think, a few thousand rupees a month.
Bare minimum, okay.
As a fees, and he'll have to work according to our discipline. So I bulldozed one of the government's houses just next to the Kacheri Bazaar, you know, the Ghanta Ghar Bazaar, which was,
Faisalabad.
and we made a naksha which says all transport from north to south and east to west. There's a junction here.
Yeah.
And so the administrator sits in the junction, and because of the discipline, and for discipline we hired a private company to give manpower to discipline them.
Okay.
So, and we said, all right, you will, since the Road Transport Authority was also under me, so all the legal authorization was, we said you will be able to charge 5 rupees, which was 3 or 4 times more than what the Suzuki used to charge. But you will allow everybody to sit, you will close the door, you will go from stop to stop. And so people got decent transport
at nominal rates.
and investors got money from their, they could sort of, you know, put in vehicles 2 or 3 and make money. And the commission, and the Gongo made money by the contribution that these people made. So within about 3 months, we had about 1,500 vehicles transporting about 120,000 people a day.
It's a very successful model.
So that became the main transport system of Faisalabad.
Yeah.
Not a single rupee of the government spent.
And people were happy, investors were happy,
Investors
passengers were happy, government was happy.
Government was
So
happy.
it's a successful model.
Yeah.
So was it replicated in other cities?
Well, you know, that's where our government things come. The model was going on well, and then came somebody's brainchild of franchise schemes. You know, if you recall, in those years in 93, 94, in franchise model, there was that you put in 50 buses for one company and only one company operates in one.
Yes.
So that nobody, since this wasn't any politically owned scheme,
Yeah.
so no politician owned it, and the
Model was
franchise scheme came, and the local investors converted to that.
Yeah.
So they gave more importance to that.
They used their influence and got it. Okay.
The franchise scheme failed after 2 years. The foots were continued to run on its own with just marginal support from the commissioner. Then Mr. Shahbaz Sharif asked me to do it in Lahore. I set up a company, it's called the Lahore Transport Company.
Yes.
This is many years later, in 2008, 2009, to replicate that model. And we did all the homework. We had tracker systems installed on buses. We had a control room. And our model was that we will tell the buses, we will say that you will operate on this route, 30 buses, and we'll give you a fare, which may be less than your market fare. Because if you say we want to charge 20 rupees, we'll ask you to charge 10 rupees. But 10 rupees we will give you subsidy. And we will give you the subsidized amount every week. And we will calculate on the amount of the tracker system how many kilometers you have traveled. Now, the point was getting investors to come in.
Yep.
The investors had a problem because he says, we want the money with the company for the subsidy. We don't want to wait for the finance department to release the subsidy each time we give you a bill, because we need the money every week.
Yeah.
So I kept requesting the finance department. And by that time, the government had gone on to the metro bus.
The other model. Okay.
The other model.
Okay.
So this model was
So you also
lost.
suffered
So
a bit of red tapeism.
So I resigned. I was doing this voluntarily, by the way.
Okay.
I had retired to that. So that was the replication of the Faisalabad model, which I still think is doable,
Okay.
and which I still think some government should try
You believe in that?
and replicate and not spend excessive amounts on infrastructure. You know.
That's a successful model. Besides these achievements, Tesneem Noorani was also instrumental in drafting a very elaborative anti-terrorism law, different facets, when he was the Interior Secretary. And you know, I was reading a book, Mr. Noorani, and it mentioned you when you were Education Secretary in Punjab. Student politics was at its peak, and we had a lot of student leaders, some of them a bit rowdy, you know, who were getting, you know, like slightly becoming a problem. And you managed to pacify all the stakeholders in a very peaceful manner, and that was another achievement, and they specifically mentioned you. But anyways, we will get back to Mr. Noorani. We're going to take a short break, a very, very interesting conversation. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Sky's the Limit. I am in conversation with Mr. Tesneem Noorani, and you know, he's narrating his life journey and such an interesting and inspiring story. Let's continue. Mr. Noorani, you became, and you were famous for being the Interior Secretary at a very critical juncture in the history of Pakistan. And you were also instrumental in drafting legislation for anti-terrorism. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
See, you know, when I was Secretary Interior, the 9/11 happened.
Yes.
And post 9/11, actually, you know, government of Pakistan really became conscious of terrorism. Prior to that, it was really sectarian issues in our country.
Okay.
You know, and when this, you remember when the 9/11 happened, we had no clue, you know, who would do it, who had done it. And so we were not to be linked with that. But nevertheless, when the bombing of the Tora Bora started and the refugees started to come, and Americans expected us to do a lot, you know, to fight with them, fight their war. So then our responsibilities increased, and, you know, our issues also started to improve. So we had, you know, so I had experienced in the field, what used to happen was that every time there was a wave against somebody,
Yeah.
the orders used to go from the Home Department, provincial government, to the deputy commissioners, and they used to arrest all people with a beard.
Okay.
All the Thanedars used to arrest everybody with a beard, and, you know, say 200, so many 100 people arrested, and,
Yeah.
you know, sweep and swept, and, you know,
Yeah.
people have been, government has been very effective. And none of them had anything to do with potential terrorism or something. So I said, look, this must stop. So when I was Interior Secretary, I said, we must have a system where the government and the SHO and the lowdown should have a list of potential terrorists or terrorist financiers or terrorist supporters. And they should have it should be duly vetted. The Home Department should really approve it. And then that should be the kind of persons you should really arrest or look towards or investigate if there is a problem in your area.
Fair enough.
So we had this, so when we were drafting, I think Shahida Jameel was the Minister for Law.
Law, yeah.
Moinuddin was the Interior Minister.
Interior Minister.
So we said, all right, when they were in this, you know, I said, this is what we need to put in. And I said, the Home Department should make their preparation, they should get their result, the input from their field formation, then they should really make it sure that those people are actually financiers, either financiers or actual shooters or, you know, supporters. And so we said that then became the schedule, a new schedule of the law, and was the Schedule 4th. So then now that Schedule 4 has become so famous, because every time it happens is that anybody who is put into the Schedule 4
Yes.
knows that he is now under the watch. And the Thanedar has the right to ask him to report to the police station. The Thanedar has a right to watch his movement. He is supposed to report his movement. He is to report all transactions, and lots of concessions given to that.
You found a very constructive way of keeping yourself busy post-retirement, and that was the formation of Tesneem Noorani Foundation, TNF. Tell us a bit about it.
See, when I retired at the age of 60, I didn't seek any extension. I didn't seek any other job. I set up an office of my own 3 weeks after my retirement, and I got a few employees, and I said, this company is here to advise multinationals and foreign investors on how to navigate the government.
How to navigate
The government.
Okay.
Because I know how the government works, so, people who come from abroad, who invest from abroad, they don't know how the government works.
Yes.
So my job will be to advise you which ministry to apply to, which not to apply to, where, where to make the effort, where not to make the effort.
End-to-end services.
Yeah. And so I did that from 2006 to 2018.
Okay.
And then, of course, COVID came, and I was doing social work even then also. But in 2018, when I quit working, I said, I want to go full time. So I set up a trust. I put in my friends, there was Akhuwat's Amjad Saqib.
Dr. Amjad Saqib.
So he's on the trust. Then we had General Hasan Salim Hayat, he's a friend of mine.
Vice Chief of Army.
Vice Chief. So he came on the trust. Then there's Air Marshal Arshad Malik.
Yes, former MDPIA.
Former MDPIA.
Yes.
He came on the trust. Then our founder of Millet Tractors, Sikandar Mustafa,
Okay.
he came on the trust. My son Danial, I said you must learn, so he came on the trust. So we have good trustees. The philosophy was, and I went, I gave you all my examples of the boarding school.
Yes.
So I was so convinced that the only way you can upgrade a poor child, a son of a peon
Or a farmer.
or a farmer whose salary is 40,000 rupees. Most of us, most of the rich people, they take solace that, yes, I send a fees to that boy and 300 rupees or 1,000 rupees, and he's studying in a government school, You will see that at the end of matriculation, the child's personality, his ambition, his communication skills will be the same as his father. He will probably have gotten a metric certificate. So I said the only way you can upgrade a guy is to take a child from the poor family, put him in a boarding school, keep him for 5 years, tell him in that environment, sports, academics.
Work on the fundamentals.
Fundamentals, computers, robotics, but then Hasan Abdals and Chandbags are so expensive to build. So I said we must have a model which doesn't have to be as ostentatious as HSN or Hasan Abdal, where children can live comfortably. So I got we got a architectural competition, and we designed the comfortable campus on 4 acres, which has a dining hall for 400 boys. By the way, then we built our first school in Faisalabad.
Okay, a model school.
Yeah, this
Boarding school.
Yeah, Akhuwat had a property which somebody had donated to them.
Okay.
So they gave us 6.
They already
acres.
have a university in Kasur.
Yeah, so they gave us 6 acres out of that. So on that we collected funds. I put in my funds to start off with to motivate the others, and we collected funds from friends, our trustees, and within 15 months we had built a school which was over 60,000 square feet, which had a dining hall for 400 boys,
Okay.
which had academic block for 10 classrooms, and computer room and library and teachers, and you know, we had a teacher residences for all our teachers, 18 teachers, married accommodation and all that. We had a dormitory block for 320 boys. All that built on 4 acres. Money raised from friends and contacts. Within 15 months, we had the school running.
Okay.
And
You started this in
2020.
During COVID.
So now we have 320 boys studying there. 40% of them are from Balochistan, from KPK, from Sindh, from other provinces.
Yeah, that's an intentional effort.
Yeah, it's an open for the country.
It's an open merit.
Yeah.
But you make sure that you get
Yeah. So now
representation from all the
almost
provinces.
20% boys are from Balochistan, 10 or 12 from KPK, similarly 10 or 12 from Sindh. And all these children are, 90% are with salaries of, whose parents' salaries is less than 40,000.
You evaluate the whole criteria.
Yeah. You know, and they are getting an education as good as Hasan Abdal. First, we didn't charge them anything. Now we have said 1,000 rupees a month.
Which is fairly decent.
All the uniform, same level as Hasan Abdal. Food, sports, medicine,
Boarding,
teaching of the highest. And Allah has been kind. Our first batch appeared in the matriculation exam, this one. And about 2 months back, results came. 48 boys appeared, 46 got A+.
Wow.
And 2 got A's.
And you got teachers from all over Pakistan or local?
Local teachers trained by our principal.
I
Mr.
get it.
Tariq Salim is a very passionate person. He was a former principal of Aptabad Public School. He's our principal.
Okay.
And then Hasan Abdal recently had a national outreach programs selection. So they selected 90 boys from all over the country to give them orientation during the summer break. And out of those 90 boys, 18 boys from our school got selected.
And what the school is called?
Our school is called the TNF Akhuwat Boarding School.
TNF Akhuwat Boarding
Our organization is called the Noorani Foundation.
Yeah.
TNF. So the school is called TNF Akhuwat Boarding School.
Okay.
And these boys were selected by Hasan Abdal for their orientation program.
Okay.
Now they'll appear in their test also in October. Let's see how many get selected.
Wow.
But they are now as confident as a Hasan Abdal boy.
And you go there and you lecture
I go
also?
there once in 2 weeks, once in 10
and
days.
you go and just check out things?
No, I'm in touch every day.
Okay.
I have an office in Lahore.
Okay.
So my ambition is to set up 20, 30 of these schools. So the second school now is going to be set up in Swabi.
Swabi. Another, it's
So
not a
this
very...
is the PF, you know, they have an NGO, RMWO. So they have, they saw our school, so they asked us to, invited us to build a school there. So we are now in the process of building our second school in Swabi.
So it's end-to-end, construction, hiring, criteria, curriculum, everything.
We've got our model now.
Wow.
So we are now replicating that here. And so here is a model which is 1/12 the cost of a Danish school or any of these boarding schools. And our boys are from the genuine poor class. At the end of 3 years, they've been with us only for 3 years. Our boys' metric result you have seen.
Yeah.
Sports also, we went to one of the cadet colleges, neighboring cadet colleges, and in football, hockey, cricket, our boys beat them in football and cricket, lost in hockey. So we emphasize on sports, we emphasize on computers, we emphasize on robotics, actual physical.
AI and all.
AI not yet, but robotics.
Okay.
So that, you know, they are there. So we want to set an example for other people to replicate. Or give us the funds, if somebody gives us 8 acres of land near some big city, preferably, for the time being, we will set up a school, we'll raise the funds.
We'll run it.
We'll run it. We've got a full management. We've got a full office in Lahore.
This is an amazing initiative.
And you know, the government cannot do it, or sometimes does it at a very high cost, and that's why you have these famous boarding schools, so few of them. You need one good boarding school at least in every tehsil.
Yeah, but now I've seen cadet colleges appearing, and we have very good one in Ormara. I don't know if you've seen that. That's also a very.
But Armara is over 400 acres.
Yes.
We are on we are on 6 acres.
6 acres. So yeah, according to the circumstances and the area, yes, definitely. But this is such an awesome initiative that what you learned during your PF school days, you're trying to replicate that and make it a foundation.
A workable model, a financially viable model.
Fair enough.
Like for one school, right now, we need a subsidy of about 5 crores a year.
Okay.
And 320 boys are being trained at the best quality. I mean, if Hasan Abdal is the gold standard of boarding schools.
Yes.
In Pakistan.
Yes.
So, I can say
yours is in the competition. Similar. Amazing.
Our result, by the way, we did a Punjab exam, I think. In the boarding schools, Hasan Abdal was number 1 in this metric exam. PF school, Sargodha was number 2. TNF, Akhwat boarding school, was number 3.
My God. So I would say seeing is believing. If you ever happen to go to that area,
Faisalabad, you're most welcome.
Faisalabad, go and visit the school and invest in the future of Pakistan, because this is the future of Pakistan. These youngsters are going to be the torch bearers, the flag bearers of Pakistan in the future. Now, as much as I would like to continue this talk, unfortunately we have paucity of time, but such an amazing story, so many aspects still uncovered which I wanted to cover, but due to time I couldn't. But before we wrap up, I would request you to, if you could kindly address the youth specifically of Pakistan. What would you like to share after having such a meritorious career?
Look, I'd like to say that every country has their problems. Pakistan has their problems. We need to solve them. But every young man or every young woman has a life to go to, health. They are healthy. They are, they have so many years ahead of them. I think they should look at things positively. They should learn to look at things positively. And they should work hard. They should think out of the box. And as Allah says, when one door is closed, 10 doors open.
10, absolutely.
So therefore, I think the point is, this is the land that Allah has given us.
Yes.
We can't abandon it.
We have to own it.
They can't abandon it.
Yeah.
Running away to the other countries is an option as a strategy in a career. But ultimately,
You have to come back to your
your shanakht, your recognition is this country. So you've got to stay and fight.
Fair enough. Believe in yourself, believe in your country. This is our identity. Whatever we are because of Pakistan. So with that thought, thank you very much, Mr. Noorani, for giving us time.
You're welcome.
Inshallah, I'll see you in another episode of Sky's the Limit. Till then, Allah Hafiz.